Why Iroh is the pinnacle of masculinity. I didn't watch this video. I don't know if it's a good video, but damn, this title just freaking hits. Why Iroh is the pinnacle of masculinity. Andrew Tate, you taking notes? You taking notes, red pill crowd? Sneeko, you got your pen. Nah, Sneeko doesn't know how to spell.
Patience, authenticity.
All right.
Humility.
Yeah.
Humor.
Yeah.
Strength.
Okay.
Wisdom.
Yup.
Love. It is rare to find all of these qualities present in a single character in any story. It is rarer still to find them in a character who struggles, who suffers loss, who has to grow and change. So rarest of all might be finding such a character in a cartoon, a show targeted at and written for children, yet still beloved by viewers of all ages for its heart, its incredible character arcs, and its meaningful storytelling. Uncle Iroh is an incredible example of masculinity because he exemplifies these essential virtues.
I would agree that Iroh is one of the best characters of anything I've ever seen. I made a video, OP done right, on Iroh, and I am incredibly proud of that video, even though it got demonetized. Even so, I love Iroh. I think he's such a well-written character.
To live out these virtues is to embrace full, authentic masculinity. Masculinity is not merely defined by being strong, confident, and assertive, but rather is well-rounded and balanced, understanding that there is far more to manhood than power and bravado. I should mention that masculinity is not the opposite of femininity, but rather it's
Isn't it though?
the opposite of boyish immaturity. These traits and virtues.
He's looking at it from a perspective of maturity versus immaturity. I actually like that. I feel like that's not what makes a man a man. What makes a man is someone that's constantly giving others. Like how he gave his life for his son, and then when his son died, he felt like he had nowhere to give until he eventually found Zuko. And he started giving Zuko. I feel like that's being a man.
Unique to masculinity. Women living out these traits display authentic femininity. That's not to say masculinity and femininity are the same. Two instruments playing the same note will sound quite different. But I'm a man with a man's point of view, and Iroh is also a man. So masculinity is what I'm marginally well qualified to discuss. If this video does well, maybe I'll get my wife to write a counterpart video for Toph or Eowyn or Galadriel. This Galadriel. Anyhow, now that we've got that clarification out of the way, let's examine how Iroh lives out his masculinity and what he can teach us about what it means to be a man. Having integrity, holding onto upright moral principles is undoubtedly a necessary quality for any man. When faced with difficult decisions, do we stand fast and act according to our conscience, or do we fold under pressure? Like a The show takes its time developing Iroh, slowly letting us learn more about him. At first, in addition to being his nephew's teacher, Iroh is presented as comic relief, a lighthearted counterpart to the overly serious and intense Zuko. Over time,
he's just this dude, he's chowing down, he's vibing. But ultimately, he is the father figure that Zuko never had. And I think that's so powerful. That is being masculine. It's the fact that he was the father figure of Zuko. I would agree. I agree with the take. He is the pinnacle of masculinity.
Iroh's journey, his past is revealed, and we learn how his mistakes, failures, and loss shaped him to be the man he is now. A man of principle, a man who believes in the dignity of all peoples. However, he doesn't start out as that man. Even after all he has been through, Iroh is not yet fully developed. During the Siege of the North, Iroh, still the loyal Fire Nation general, advises Zhao on the best strategy to win the battle and conquer the Northern Water Tribe. It is not until Zhao reveals his plan to murder the Moon Spirit that we get a glimpse of Iroh's higher principles. Iroh may be loyal to the Fire Nation, but he's also dedicated to the good and balance of the whole world.
I see that criticism a lot, that Iroh was a Fire Nation general in the beginning and the Fire Nation was objectively wrong. Now, while I do agree that they were, fascist, from some perspective, he was a loyal Fire Nation soldier, and he gave up all of his status for his nephew because he knew his nephew had a good heart. I would argue that that is not the makings of a man just blindly following a fascist regime.
Forced to choose between the two, Iroh chooses the greater good, marking himself a traitor and commencing the final stage of his interior journey. Iroh's time in the Earth Kingdom during Book 2 evolves and solidifies his principles. By living among his former enemies, he develops a newly strengthened desire for equality and fair treatment. This comes to a
He loved the fact that he was able to relinquish those responsibilities to take on new responsibilities, and those being just being a genuinely good person to the people around him.
Head in the crossroads of destiny, where Iroh confronts Zuko as he moves to attack Aang, moves toward the honor and position he still desires. Iroh, at the end of Book 1, though he stood fast on other principles, likely would not have made this speech, but he has learned and grown beyond who he was then, and so
I love that about Iroh too.
Passionately pleased with Zuko, who joined Iroh on this journey throughout the Earth Kingdom to adhere to the same ideals that Iroh now holds dear. Having integrity.
See, I don't even think it's now. The beauty of Iroh, you saw his personality grow from, like, even the backstories from when he was young. When he was young, he was supposed to be the next leader of the Fire Nation. He was known as the Dragon of the West, this incredibly powerful general. And as the story kept going, his son died and he broke down, and he started seeing that it's your bonds with others that is truly important.
It does not mean being completely rigid and inflexible. Integrity is not stubbornly clinging to ideas or values with no room for change. Rather, it is the ability, after having formed our principles, to not waver when they are challenged. Iroh may not have been fully on the side of goodness and truth, but he undoubtedly always held fast to his beliefs and standards, regardless of the consequences. We do not merely have responsibilities to principles, but we are also accountable to the people in our lives, our loved ones, especially our children. Iroh serves as Zuko's mentor and guide, and cares for Zuko when no one else. He is not blind to Zuko's faults and shortcomings. Indeed, he may understand them.
That's another really good point. The dude's, he's honest about this stuff. He knows that Zuko has a lot of issues, and he recognizes them. He doesn't just turn a blind eye to the flaws of people he respects. That's a good quality as well. Chat says, even as the Dragon of the West, he never killed a dragon. That is true. Even when he was part of the fascist regime, he still, took mercy on the last dragon.
Better than anyone else. This is illustrated beautifully in The Storm, where Iroh describes the circumstances of Zuko's banishment to the ship's disgruntled crew. Where others are quick to dismiss Zuko as impulsive and reckless, which he most certainly is, Iroh knows Zuko's heart. He understands that Zuko is in need of growth and change, but also that he has suffered greatly and needs to be given time and space to become the man Iroh knows he can be. Iroh is loyal to Zuko. He is true to him. That doesn't mean he supports every reckless action or rash word of the prince, but rather that he refuses to give up on his nephew. Loyalty is not blind obedience or acceptance. It is the adherence to one's duty to another. Even when Iroh and Zuko are torn apart by Zuko's betrayal, his uncle remains loyal. He continues to hope that Zuko can find his way again.
Yeah, and he gives Zuko the silent treatment. That scene where he's sitting in prison and Zuko says, "Uncle, I'm lost. I need to talk to you." And Iroh doesn't look at him. And Iroh just turns away, faces the wall, and a tear drips from his eye silently while Zuko's behind him saying, "Uncle, I need you now most." And Iroh knows that in order to get out of that pit, he needs to climb out of that himself. If he just gives him a hand, he'll just fall right back in, because he didn't do the groundwork to actually grow himself.
Iroh does not abandon Zuko, does not count him as completely lost, but rather takes up his fight.
This is the scene I was talking about!
The only way he can now...
He comes to talk to him, he gives him the silent treatment because he knows that's what he needs.
The time they spent in the Earth Kingdom, living amongst, working for, laughing, and eating with the enemies of their nation was transformational for Iroh. As already mentioned, it allowed him to grow beyond his roots in the Fire Nation. But Zuko's metamorphosis was not complete, and it was reverted by the promise of having his former life restored. This convinces Iroh that there is nothing more he can do for Zuko. Not directly, anyway. After having received all the wisdom and guidance his uncle had to offer, Zuko must now find his own way. And it is Iroh's job to simply be there when Zuko comes back and to welcome him with open arms. But more on that later.
He needs to be there to forgive, but he needed Zuko to do the legwork himself.
Iroh's steadfast refusal to give...
Peak masculinity! Andrew Tate could never.
...shows us that loyalty is not a flighty thing to be given or taken away lightly. It is a conscious choice to stand by another, to support them and help them, because they need and deserve someone at their side. I can't think of a relationship that better exemplifies patience than that of Iroh's with Zuko. Patience is an essential part of Iroh's loyalty to Zuko. Despite his nephew's regular outbursts, flare-ups, and explosions of temper, Iroh constantly remained a calming presence for the hot-headed prince. Having the patience to serenely deal with his decidedly impatient nephew is one of Iroh's defining qualities. King Bumi's advice applies beyond the limited scope of earthbending. As Iroh explains to Zuko in bitter words, work, each nation, each cadre of benders can learn from the other elements and the other nations. The patience and steadiness of the Earth Kingdom's people is a quality that everyone should admire and strive to obtain. The ability to wait, to slow down, to calmly take your time and consider your options before acting is necessary for true, well-rounded masculinity. Charging at your problems head-on may in fact be the solution, but only if all other possibilities have been considered and found less effective. It should never be done as an immediate gut instinct.
That's what, like, when you hear, like, the red pill guys, like the Giga Chads today, saying that what it is to be a man, you know, you gotta make a lot of money, you gotta sleep with a lot of women, you have to get into fights. Like, these are, like, colossally bad takes. None of these are make you a man.
Action. That sort of impulsiveness is a clear sign of immaturity. Consider Iroh's storyline during the Spirit World. When confronted by Earthbenders, caught unawares and badly outnumbered, he does not immediately lash out and resist, as we can imagine Zuko would. Iroh endures captivity until he sees an opening, then acts decisively and ferociously. His patience and compliance put the Earthbenders at ease, and Iroh is able to exploit their lack of caution and engineer an escape. Or,
dude, also, that scene where he's like, "Oh, sir, please help me. These shackles are too loose. If you keep them loose, my legs just keep banging against each other. Can you please make my shackles just a little tighter?" And they're like, okay. we could make his shackles tighter, I guess.
Take Iroh's initial meeting with Toph during the chase. Upon sensing his movement, Toph immediately attacks, showing her fear and unease at being on her own, her immaturity and lack of experience. Iroh wisely does not respond in kind. Where so many, especially might instinctually fight back, believing themselves to be in danger, Iroh takes time to read the situation and
I love
act
this
in a
scene
disarming
too.
manner. He absolutely could have fought back with some justification, and that would have been a duel for the ages. But instead, he lets events play out and soon learns that his attacker was no enemy, but rather a scared child in need of wise advice and a good cup of tea. Patience does not mean a lack of decisiveness, but rather an ability to judiciously decide when and how to act.
That's it, baby.
To truly be a man, you have to be true to yourself, to who you really are. Men are not soulless robots capable of powering through any situation without changing so much as a facial expression or experiencing a single emotion, nor should they aspire to such stoic height.
It's such a common L take. Emotions? Emotions are for women. Men don't have emotions. Men are just badass. It's like the worst possible thing you could say to anyone ever.
Not only enjoy things deemed manly by whatever society, able to enjoy a wide variety of things, from flowers to art to tea, and they should be able to appreciate the beauty, skill, or deliciousness inherent in all of those. Iroh is so beautifully, wonderfully authentic. There's no better example of his authenticity, of course, than his love of tea. I'm not suggesting that tea is widely seen as unmanly. It's quite worldwide, and this also to apply to the world of Avatar: The Last Airbender, but I'm an American, and we tend to have skewed perspectives about all things we perceive as British. Anyhow, I think we can
It's okay. All right.
agree that a deep love of, maybe even an obsession with, a beverage that can best be described as
hot leaf juice
is not something we would expect from a fire-breathing general of the nation that is taking over the known world. But that certainly doesn't stop Iroh from enjoying it to the fullest. Iroh's love of tea provides us with an example of the beauty of appreciation. There are so many good and beautiful things in this world and Iroh's that deserve to be appreciated. Being able to look at a flower or a cup of tea as more than their surface qualities and appreciate the intricate design.
I really hope he gets into the spiritual aspect of it. Not that I'm saying that in order for a man to be a man, he must be spiritual. No, I'm not saying that that is the case. However, in the Avatar world, there's clearly like manifestations of the spiritual. And I think it's his connection to the spiritual and to the divine of the Avatar world that really leads him to be so interesting. Like, ultimately, he feels like, you know, all things are connected, like there's some sort of chi in everything or whatever. And he does love all that stuff. Like, he'll see a flower and he'll see the beauty of that flower, because it's more than just leaves. It's something that has beauty in it. There's like an inherent beauty in everything in the world. And I like that mindset and perspective that he has, especially in the world of Avatar.
And our creative blend of flavors is a quality for which we should all strive. If we go through life only judging things based off a surface level view, we are not seeing their true natures, and thus our thoughts and opinions cannot truly be authentic. The time to really think about the world around him, seeing the beauties that hide from a casual glance, Iroh tells us about his own nature, how he is so much more than meets the eye. Iroh's love of tea.
But he doesn't do it like, he doesn't flex, right? He's not like, I have found inner peace, therefore I am awesome and you are a pussy. I am starting a new podcast, calling it the Fresh and Fat Podcast. That's an incredibly manly thing to do. Listen, I don't like, I go meet people and it's like, oh, hello, who are you? What do you do? Oh, hi, I'm Taku. I have 2 million subscribers on a YouTube channel. I notice you only have 15 followers on Instagram. Now, that's not very cool. That's pretty asshole-ish.
That's the importance of mastery. When we truly appreciate something, we should strive to master it as best we can. Whether an art form, a job, or any other means of self-expression, diligent study and practice cuts through cheap tricks and quick wins, and allows us to display something true and authentic about ourselves. By mastering the art of tea making, Iroh does not merely establish that he really likes tea, but also that he is a careful, patient, deliberate man who has spent years perfecting his craft. A man who can take...
See, I think it's because anything he does it right. He doesn't half-ass anything. Whether it's making a jailbreak, or whether it's betraying his country, or whether it's starting a rebellion, he doesn't half-ass anything.
The time to become a master, even in the making of
hot leaf juice,
shows he is not afraid to pursue his true passions and demonstrates a willingness to learn that is translatable to any area of study. By daring to be the Fire Nation General with a passion for tea, Iroh teaches us the importance of defying molds, of rejecting the expectations of others when they run contrary to our true selves, no matter how others do us. Humility is one of my favorite virtues to discuss, mostly because it's largely misunderstood. Being humble does not mean having a lowly view of oneself traits. Having true humility means having an accurate view of yourself, having insight into your own strengths and weaknesses, your virtues and vices. To be humble, we have to reject bravado, overconfidence, and arrogance, yes, but at the same time, we must acknowledge our own abilities. In short, humility can be defined as having clear self-perception, having an untarnished view of yourself. We see Iroh's humility on full display during The Tale of Iroh. This short anthological segment of The Tales of Ba Sing Se gives us wonderful insight into Iroh's character.
Oh god, dude, the Tales of Ba Sing Se episode, it's an entire episode that's purely filler. It's pure filler, and it's just random shit that the gang did in this huge city. And it's one of the best episodes in the entire show. Iroh walking around and he sees someone try to mug him and he's like, oh no, your stance is all wrong. You are so easy to just knock over. And I'm just like, wow, this man is such a mad lad.
As a man of great botanical knowledge, he doesn't shame the shop owner for not knowing where to place the moonflower. Iroh imparts his knowledge in a genteel way, lacking any pride or derision. His humility allows him to share what he knows in a generous manner, with genuine care and love for the world around him.
And also the fact that, like, he sees this kid crying, so he wants to make the kid happy, and the song that he sings him is the Leaves from the Vine song. And he's just, like, singing it to him, and it's like, all right, this is cute. And then, towards the end of the episode, Leaves from the Vine. I'm not crying, you are, goddammit!
Or consider how Iroh handles the would-be mugger with the poor stance. If he were driven by pride, Iroh would notice the man's ineptitude and immediately act, only desiring to demonstrate his superior martial proficiency. Instead, Iroh takes the time to...
What a terrible day for rain!
Note the mugger's ludicrous stance. He does not deride the man, he does not mock him, he simply critiques his technique, or lack thereof, in a manner that shows how much Iroh cares about
you are so easy to knock
over.
Teaching
someone of lesser knowledge without belittling them takes humility, as Iroh displays here. I wasn't completely sure under which category to talk about Iroh's birthday picnic for Lu 10, but since I've been covering the tale of Iroh under humility, now seems like an appropriate time. One of the hardest things to do in life is to...
And by the way, a lot of you don't know, this was the last thing that voice actor recorded. Iroh's voice actor died between season 2 and 3. They replaced him in season 3, and this was the final episode that he actually recorded. This was the final performance that he did. In fact, I remember I mentioned something about that on Twitter, about how, like, this was his last performance or whatever, or how Iroh is such a mad lad or something like that. And the new Iroh voice actor, the one that voice acted him in season 3 and in Korra, like, he replied to the post, like, saying how impactful that was, like, the new voice actor. So I don't know, this is a very special moment.
To admit that we made mistakes. Our pride tends to make us hate admitting that we were in the wrong. We will go to great lengths to justify things we have said or done. Understand that he has no such pride. He failed his son, and he lost him. There's nothing he can do about it, but he can grow as a man and as a father. Iroh's pride could have overtaken him,
Emotional
caused him to
damage.
seek vengeance for his son by throwing all his energy, his whole self, into the war effort, but he chose another way. By learning from his failure, Iroh became a wiser, gentler man, while still retaining his inner strength.
And he will never ever forgive himself for that. It's not like, oh, oopsie, it's in the past. Moving on is important, but that's part of what makes you you.
Humility allows us to overcome our pride and learn from our failures, rather than being consumed by them.
Bro.
It's a little odd to talk about humor being an essential part of masculinity, since stoicism is widely considered a manly trait. And to be sure, the
That's
ability
not a
to maintain
contradiction.
composure in difficult situations is worth obtaining. But if you can't also take the time to laugh, particularly at yourself, you lack balance. Masculinity can never sway too far toward one virtue without becoming unbalanced and venturing into the extreme end of that virtue, and thus becoming a vice.
It is not healthy to be a muscle monster, which is why I am a muscle monster in season 3, but I am fat in season 1 and 2 to balance my BMI.
Applicable for any of the virtues discussed here, but I think it's notable with humor because stoicism is so common in the archetypal man's man in cinema. Ethan Hunt, Jason Bourne, John Wick, and any
He wasn't fat, he was packing. Bro, he was lactating.
number of John Wayne or Clint Eastwood's characters are able to endure the toughest of situations without so much as changing their facial expression. However, even they have moments of sorrow and joy, but none quite so well portrayed as our Iroh's. What
That's
makes
right,
Iroh's
baby.
humor so delightful? He never belittles or tears down another person for a laugh. The vast majority of his humor is self-deprecating, or just straight up funny at no one's expense. Iroh is more than willing to
I
laugh
love
at
that
himself
scene.
or find joy in an amusing situation or turn of phrase. Able to laugh at clever remarks, goofy objects, or bad tea jokes, Iroh shows us the simple beauty of good humor. Smiling and laughing are some of the most attractive human behaviors. Happy people, quite simply, are more likable and approachable, where Zuko remains stoic and steadfastly devoted to his single-minded mission.
Zuko was not stoic. Zuko was a hothead, bro.
Iroh attracts the goodwill and love of the audience with his lightheartedness and jovial nature.
You see, I don't know if it's just about the audience. I feel like he needed to be that lighthearted person in Zuko's life. Zuko, at this point, he was seeing red. That dude was rejected from his nation, betrayed by his father, abandoned by his mother, belittled by his sister, scorned by his nation, banished, and he's determined to do something to reclaim his honor. Man was seeing red. He is around people that he's regarding as his absolute enemies, okay? Dude was in a rough spot. Iroh needed to be that comedian to show him that there's light in the world.
But Iroh's good humor is not merely for our benefit to make the audience love him, though it certainly accomplishes that. So much of it is for Zuko's.
Iroh's spitting facts. It's like, Uncle, I know what you're gonna tell me. That she is my sister, and that I should, like, reconcile with her. What? No. Azula's crazy. She needs to go down. I love that line so much.
Iroh tries regularly to lighten his nephew's dour mood. Rather than being aimlessly cheery, there is an end to Iroh's jokes.
That's
and goofs.
true.
They're for the good of his nephew.
Yes!
The good of the
Preach,
boy
King!
Who he would not see follow the path of his own son. Iroh's humor is so wonderfully masculine because he deploys it appropriately and purposefully. He knows when to be stoic and serious, and when to wisecrack and smile disarmingly. There is balance in his humor, and balance, finding the golden mean, as we've already discussed, is crucial for the pursuit of true, full manhood.
And then they say to him, it's like, yo, Iroh, what's going on? Like, how is your advice so wise? He's like, I and tea have a lot in common. The trick is proper aging. Advice and tea have a lot in common. Dude's amazing. I love him.
Now let's talk about how Iroh fulfills every man's dream of becoming an absolute physical specimen. Being physically strong is important.
That's it, baby. That's it, baby! Like, I love how the entire video so far was talking about all these different, like, things about him, and now it's like, and he's also a Giga Chad.
Be clear about that. Strengthening your body through rigorous exercise and training allows you to take care of and, if needed, defend yourself and your family. There's great value in physical strength. However, such strength is impossible to achieve without
You need to be strong of body and strong of mind.
mental strength, without force
Yeah!
and willpower. It's great to work out, to develop, to train and tone your body, but you cannot do so consistently
toning
unless
your
you have
penis.
an end in mind. Throughout the first two
Mind.
books, Iroh is far, far from the paragon of physical fitness. He himself cracks jokes about his love for food and the size of his belly. But when the need arises, Iroh reveals the strength that he has always held within himself. That strength is not in his biceps, well, not at first, but rather is in his mind, in his perseverance. Upon getting thrown in jail, Iroh does not despair, though he does take time to
It's like, Iroh, you forgot leg day. Yes, every day is arm day, Zuko.
recover from Zuko's betrayal. When we see Zuko visit his uncle in the headband, Iroh is too hurt to respond. He is not yet ready to help.
I don't think it's that Iroh was hurt. I think, frankly, it's that Iroh needed him to get out of that position himself. I don't think it came from an Iroh place of hurt.
Help Zuko find his way again. But Zuko's visit does confirm one thing.
That there is
the
still
prince is still
heart
in need of guidance
of
and love.
Zuko.
One-sided conversation helps restore Iroh's
Yes!
purpose, and
Every day is
Zuko
arm day,
compels
sir.
him to become, well, an absolute unit. Strength like
My
Iroh's is not
God! This right here is a man!
Strength like Iroh's is not impressive simply in its own way,
Oh!
though it is incredibly impressive. I mean, he blows open the wall of Ba Sing Se with a single massive fireball, for crying out loud.
Okay, alright. But he also blows a hole in his prison cell by punching it. That's even cooler.
Rather because of what it tells us about the journey of the character possessing such strength. It shows dedication,
Santo
perseverance,
with
and
his six-pack.
self-sacrifice. One cannot obtain strength of body, mind, or firebending without bending one's will toward mastery. Iroh is a perfect embodiment of those strengths. His resolute, unfailing pursuit of what is good and true allowed him to become a man who could tear through metal bars with his bare hands.
Dude was literally too strong to be imprisoned. This man, he pulled a Kaido. Literally, Kaido from One Piece. Got nothing on this man.
Unleash waves of fire that overwhelm his opponents, and most importantly, love Zuko in a way that allows him to see clearly and
He
find
didn't
his
tear
own
out, he
path.
exploded
Iroh's
out. He
chiseled
cannot be
physique is
contained.
not masculine just because it looks awesome, though it does, but rather because it shows us what we can be if the need arises, and if our minds are sufficiently strong. Physical power without purpose is vanity, but when given direction, when needed, it unmistakably displays the masculinity, the dedication, fortitude, and perseverance of its holder. All of these virtues, however, are for naught if one does not have wisdom. What is wisdom? It is not merely knowledge, no matter how high the level of knowledge. Instead, it is the combination of knowledge, insight, and right judgment that allows one to act appropriately in a given situation.
That's what it's all about.
Wisdom is knowing when to be stoic and when to crack a joke. Wisdom
I don't think he knows what stoic means, but I do think that this is a great video.
is knowing when it's time to be patient and when it's time to strike. Wisdom is understanding the power of physical strength and of a gentle word, and using one when the other wouldn't be as effective.
That's wisdom it's the peak. You need the physical and the mental. That's all there as a backup for wisdom. Wisdom is what teaches you how to use your arsenal at any point.
Wisdom is a deep and accurate understanding of oneself, of others, and of the world, combined with the ability to discern how to act based off that knowledge.
Yes.
If you polled fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender to define Iroh with a single trait, I'd bet good money that wisdom would be at the top of the list. Iroh displays wisdom in practically every scene he's in. By imparting kindly words of advice to Toph, by teaching Zuko the importance of balance, and by admitting to Aang that he doesn't always have the answers, Iroh demonstrates that he is an astute, experienced teacher who is also smart enough to admit that he's not omniscient. It's hard to pick out examples of Iroh's wisdom that I haven't already covered under another virtue, and that's kind of the point. By exercising patience when captured, Iroh demonstrates wisdom. By knowing when to step in and prevent Zuko from doing something rash,
Man
Iroh shows
exercises
proper
wisdom.
judgment. By humbly accepting that Ozai, the man who stole the throne of the Fire Nation from him, is not his to defeat, Iroh displays superior understanding. Iroh is so admirable, is such a paragon of masculinity, because after a lifetime of experience, learning, and failure, Iroh has grown in knowledge, strength, humility, and virtue of every kind, and he acts according to what he has learned. He has piercing insight into others and himself, and so is able to direct Team Avatar as they struggle to know their destinies without Aang at their side.
That's
this
right,
scene,
bro.
on the eve of
I
the war's
love that
final
scene.
battle, is when we get to see Iroh in all his wisdom, no longer hampered by and stronger because of his failures, fully devoted to the mission he now knows is his to take on. I would be remiss.
Bro, that was a great scene. I love that a lot. That was incredibly pog. I feel like this video is missing one thing. It's missing one thing. I don't think there was a single mention to the spiritual in the entire video. And I feel like that's a really important aspect of Avatar.
If I did not cover the scene prior to the one I just mentioned, in which Zuko and Iroh are finally reconciled after Zuko's betrayal during the Crossroads of Destiny. It is an incredibly beautiful, touching scene that shows the growth of both characters and their bond in a way that can hardly be watched with dry eyes. Iroh's unconditional love for Zuko is overwhelming. He forgives and embraces Zuko, not because he wasn't hurt by his nephew's betrayal, but rather because he is overjoyed that Zuko has grown to become the man Iroh knew he could be. Iroh shows us the truest meaning of love, desiring the good of another. Throughout the series, there is nothing Iroh has wanted more than for Zuko to find his way, to be more than a loyal servant of the Fire Nation, to be true to himself. Everything Iroh does is in service of that love. His wholehearted commitment to the
what it
good
means
of
to
Zuko,
be a man.
his adopted son, is constant and unwavering. In loving so purely and deeply, Iroh lives out his authentic masculinity to a level rarely matched in the world of fiction.
That was a great video.
This video as much as I enjoyed making it. Please drop a like if you want me to do more such videos, and leave your suggestions for other character profiles I could do. And
that was really good, Shiz. I liked it. Thank you, Master Samwise. This was a really good video. God, I love Iroh so much. I would rub my head against his abs.
Like, subscribe, and follow me on Twitch. Stay weird, fam.